everybody. This is Nancy and Lisa, and today we are sitting at the Beauregard Museum in downtown DeRitter in Louisiana, which is part of the no man's land. First, I've got to bring in Marci Cook, and Marci is actually from a different parish. Marci, you are in Vernon Parish, but you are our tour guide today, and you're doing so awesome, and you're so much fun. Tell us, you brought us here because this is a neighboring parish, right?
Right. Beauregard is right next to Vernon, and the Vernon Parish, Beauregard Parish, and Allen Parish are part of the Myths and Legends Byway. But even more importantly for this, we are all also part of the No Man's Land Bicentennial Celebration. And so we are partnered with 5 other organizations throughout the western part of the state, from north to south, celebrating No Man's Land, and it's bicentennial. The neutral strip. The neutral strip. Yes, and see, this celebration is the bicentennial celebration of the time period when this land was disputed territory. You know, we'd already had the Louisiana Purchase. We'd been bought. This land had been bought, but this western side of the territory was not really clear. It wasn't very well defined as to where the boundary, the border was. In some places, some people thought it went all the way over to the Brazos River, went all the way east to Cane River, and so some of our government officials got together and said, okay, we're just going to make it a neutral area until the governments figure out where it really is. You know, what's what.
Yeah.
You know, so for
sometimes it takes a long time for government things.
Sometimes
we're sitting with the city official.
Actually, during that time period, it took 3 years to basically decide and ratify the treaty that set the boundary. And that did not happen right at the beginning of this time period. We were a neutral strip for close to 20 years.
Wow.
Okay. And then, of course, like I said, it took 3 years to do that, from 1819 to 1821. We're talking about governments on different parts of the world, and in a time period when it took sailing ships, not fax lines, to go back and forth. And
no wonder.
so it took quite a bit of time.
It took time, and it's interesting because, you know, with this bicentennial celebration and being traveling around as we have, we've been in Natchitoches, Toledo, Bend. We even went over to Texas yesterday. But that's for the El Camino. But there's history that kind of connects over there with, you know, the water and everything. Because of this, we're actually getting a better idea of the communities and a better idea of the history of the region because of this centennial celebration. I don't think we would have put two together. You know what I mean? So I think this is a really good thing for visitors coming into Louisiana, especially this side of it, above and different from New Orleans, because I think when we think about Louisiana, the first thing we think is New Orleans, and obviously you're soaked in history. You're soaked in swamps and history.
That's true. And pine trees.
And pine trees. And that brings us to Elona. Elona, here you are at the museum, and so you're part of the city, right?
Yes, I work for the city of DeRitter, and the museum falls under that umbrella, and we are a former passenger train depot, Kansas City Southern, turned into a museum. And in it, we have a collection from local people over the years who have donated things from their families, from their households. So we have a mix of things, but we also have a lot from our timber history, our sawmill past, and just rural life in general.
And the timber industry was that was a big deal that's what kind of put DeRitter on the map, right?
Economically, yes. 1897, the railroad came through our area. And a lot of folks around the country, they were waiting for that, because our trees here, they had never been cut. And so there was a lot of money to be made. And DeRitter really had its place in the southern sawmill past, and also, as I mentioned, in the labor movements with these sawmill workers trying to unionize. And so in the museum here, we have things from from our various sawmills, some of the tools that were used in this vast undertaking of taking down all these trees and milling them.
And they're big trees.
They were absolutely huge. Yes, yes, they were.
And Marci, you were saying it was actually like a pine prairie back in the day.
Right. It was more like a pine prairie. That's really what it was called.
Okay.
Because the trees were far enough apart. You could put wagons through there. You could drive cattle through there, horses. It was not very close cut. The trees were not right up against each other. There was not a lot of undergrowth. It was a nice walk, as long as you understood you were still in the wild. There were still wild animals.
And now when through reforestation, the trees are planted closer together, so then you can't just walk through with the growth.
You can, but they are much closer together. You are not going to be able to drive through. You couldn't take a wagon through.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a wagon. Actually, I think it'd be fun.
I think it'd
it
be
could be fun. I don't know. Look at that little buggy. That buggy's cool.
I think the covered wagons would
Whose
have been
buggy
a
was
trip.
that?
That was the Crosby families, and it was kind of like the Cadillac of the day. But it's written that DeRitter's streets and our roads here were so awful that people preferred to ride on the railroad track by wagon rather than on the streets and on the roads because they were just awful.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Well, who knew on that? What's interesting also, you were talking about, this is a different culture. This is a sawmill culture. It's the foresting culture. So people came from all over the country. Did they end up settling here, right?
Some did, and then some moved on after the trees were cut. Some moved on to wherever the company went to next.
So it's kind of like the gold rush in a way.
kind
You're
of
working
is.
for the company. It's a company town at this point.
Yes, in fact, Washington State, there's an area that has a similar past as what we have here, because the company that was here, Long Bell Lumber Company, moved up there, and their past is very similar. In fact, in Longview, Washington, some of their buildings are very similar because the sawmill officials here, they hired their own people. They were from Kansas City, and they built some of these buildings, and so the same people who built the buildings here and designed them, they did so in Longview, Washington.
So when all those people moved on, what happened here? I mean, did the town close up, or it managed to?
No, we managed to survive, and as I mentioned to you guys, the timber companies still owned the land, and so it was cut over. They marketed it to farmers from elsewhere, and then a lot of people's families came here during that time, which was when the farmers kind of relocated from around the country. Some of them were having a difficult time because of the Depression or what have you, and they really tried to make a start here.
And can you do agriculture out here? Because I know some areas that we went to, it was at Sabine Parish, they said, growing crops because of the soil,
hard,
because of the clay. And I know you have clay here, Marci, in this area. I know you have clay. They're making pots out of it right now.
Yeah, they said it was difficult.
It was difficult to farm and do agriculture.
Well, we still have a lot of farmers here, actually.
Okay.
I mean, we still have farming here, and agriculture is still a part of our economy. I would say that what an interesting part of our history is that a lot of the citrus farmers, they really thought that citrus was going to be the next big thing here.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But unfortunately, a lot of the freeze killed off a lot of the citrus here.
So you get cold, because I even see
we get cold enough for that.
Yeah, because I see there's ice before the bridge, and I'm like, what? It's humid. We're melting.
Can you imagine, though, with all those tree stumps left on the land, and a farmer buys that land, and then they have to go get rid of all those
You have to
tree
de-stump.
stump.
That's right. That's what
hard
they
work.
did. Yeah, that is hard work. Yeah, this is
Were there de-stumping companies?
There were. There was that was part of the industry. Yeah, that came and did that, and still a lot was in the stump, and they would boil that down and get things out and make things from that.
So that's the thing you're saying. Just about anything that had to do with wood, is an economy here. Syrup. They were making syrup.
Oh, they made different families made syrup. In fact, in Vernon Parish, I know one family that still makes syrup.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how many do that now, but that was just part of
life.
That was just part of life and doing that.
Turpentine as well. You said you had turpentine.
Yes, we had turpentine camps. I mean, any way to monetize the tree.
They did.
We had people here doing that. Yeah.
Okay, so then, and today you still have chipping companies. And Marci, you were telling us one that is actually certified. It's a green company.
It's a green company, so they plant more than what they take, and
That's cool.
they buy from other qualified
Certified.
woodworkers. Okay, the people who do the cutting and transporting, and so it's big business there.
But it's changed in regards to, we're not just
Oh,
going to,
yes.
this is now
Right.
going into being more sustainable, right?
Right.
That's good to
That's
know.
really good.
That's good, that's good.
And they use every part of that tree. When it
Wow.
comes in, by the time they get finished with that tree, all the different little piles are all sitting there, and trucks come and take those, and they use it all.
I wonder which tree they use for toilet paper. I was just thinking about that.
It's a good thing
I
it's
know,
not cactus.
This is really what we want to talk about, right? Well, no, it's true. I remember in Northern California being somewhere, and we walked into some kind of restaurant bar,
yeah,
and we
that's
were
right.
in the Redwoods, and they said something about if you're anti-loggers, don't use toilet paper or something like
Yeah,
that.
it
There was
was
a
kind
sign
of-
out there. Well, it's just always kind of stuck with me. That's the thing.
Well, it's because it's like because of the tree huggers and such.
Yes.
That, oh, please don't cut
I'm
down
a
the
tree
tree. Well,
hugger.
then don't
I
use
love
toilet
trees.
paper or anything else.
Yeah.
That was
Don't
that
write.
kind of attitude.
Right.
That kind of.
But the other thing about the museum, obviously, you're telling the history of lumber, but you're also telling the history of people and families. So genealogy, family research, people come in here for that. One lady I found particularly interesting is your grandma Moses. Here, you want to tell
Yes.
everybody about her?
Well, Gussie Townsley, she's kind of our grandma Moses, and she painted scenes from her life growing up in rural Louisiana, and she told little stories to go along with each painting. But Miss Gussie was well loved. She was from an area, a community called the Junction Community, which is near Maryville. But she had a glimmer of art fame before she died. She had a showing, an art showing in California, and we're very pleased to have two of her paintings. In fact, there's an organization, I think it's in Virginia, that contacted us and is kind of chronicling women artists from around, from throughout the South and Northeast, and they wanted to include her.
Oh, nice.
In,
Yeah, 'cause-
in their information.
I'm sure Clementine Hunter has to be part of that too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because it's interesting because they're almost similar in a way,
Yeah.
in their style. Speaking of art, the stained glass in here is amazing, and that's a local who did that too.
Yes, Mr. James Burnett Jr. is a retired art teacher here in DeRidder, and he's an artist, and he is a landscape artist, I think, as well. But he did all the stained glass in here. We have 4 pieces, and they depict our parish, our old parish jail, the Gothic jail, our courthouse, and there's a logging scene, and then there's one of the Kansas City Southern train. And so we're very lucky to have that. And in the 90s, the museum applied for an arts grant from the state, and they received that, and Mr. Burnett was able to make the stained glass.
That's awesome.
I love
It's really
them.
beautiful.
And speaking of art too, you have these amazing paintings from an artist out of Lake Charles area, and that one with the ladies, heartbroken with all the angels, and you've got another piece that goes with it. This is a family that also donated furniture with a hidden compartment.
That's right. This comes from the Stewart family, and it was an old family here. And the piece of furniture is a linen closet, and it has a secret compartment that, according to the information that we have, the family hid small belongings, jewelry, and gold in this compartment during the Civil War. And then the paintings, they depict a girl, a Stewart, and according to their family story, died of grief or heartache when her husband died in the Civil War. And so in the larger painting, and it is a large painting.
It's beautiful. I mean, this is she's like painting like the masters.
That's
you know?
right.
It does. It's very
really
Rembrandt
classy. Yeah,
kind
very
of style.
Rembrandt-like. Yeah.
She's holding her husband's portrait, and then the angel in the corner has her wedding ring. And then we have a companion piece that's her in heaven. The larger painting is her being prepared for heaven. But the woman who painted it was a Mistress Stewart Fletcher, and what we know about her, which is not much, but she had a gallery in the Majestic Hotel, which was a beautiful old hotel in Lake Charles. So we're very pleased to have that piece here. Those pieces here.
You have a lot to do with music as well.
Yeah, we do. We actually do, and that's kind of a forgotten part of No Man's Land. In a lot of ways, is the musicians that we had here. But we have a bluegrass bass. We have a player piano, which came from the USO, and here in DeRitter we have the first off-post USO in the nation. and that's where that piano came from. And then we have this piano, which comes from New Orleans, and it was made around 1911. Beautiful. And we have a military-issued field organ, a small
the little one
used in the field, yes, and then a pump organ.
That was at the radio station.
Oh.
The one that you had, or maybe it was the photos of the radio station.
Yes, we had a radio station
singers.
here. Yeah, KDLA was a radio station here.
We have to bring in the and you have radios too. Cool. You have old radios as well. So.
Yeah, we have a lot of old radios here.
Yeah,
so if you're a radio enthusiast, stop by.
and also military history, because you're close to Fort Polk as well.
That's right.
And that one gentleman that caught my attention. Obviously, we should talk about the other gentleman here too. One was he was part of the I don't want to say the party, but those who carried the coffin for JFK.
Oh, yes.
Reading about that.
Yes.
The Wagner, I think his last name was.
Yes, that's right. We have a letter from his family. We have some information on him. We also have some information on a former mayor, Blankenship, who was highly decorated in World War II. And then we have the casket flag of a World War I soldier from DeRitter. His funeral was actually held at the parish courthouse, and his family last year donated his casket flag. But we're very happy to have these items. And also, coming this fall, we'll have an exhibit on the DeRitter Army Air Base. We have Fort Polk, but we also in DeRitter had an Army Air Base.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So you're a big Army community here.
Yes.
This area is military to the core.
Yeah. And
all along, from no man's land, where we had military U.S. outposts, during that time period, all the way up to today.
When we were at Ruby D's, we got to talk about Ruby D's antique shop, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like its own emporium. Like, really.
Yes.
And that was an amazing experience. While we were there was an event going on. It seems like it was a run, I think it was for Bricks for Veterans or something, that they were running up to where her antique store was. But the one side of the railroad was just covered, like all these flags. So we wanted to know what that was. I meant to ask Ruby, but we didn't get to that.
It's got to be some sort of a motorcycle run.
Okay.
And we do have groups that host motorcycle runs in benefits.
Okay.
And almost always they have some sort of a military
Listen,
benefit
the train's
component.
coming.
Yes, here comes the train. Cool.
We can't escape the train.
Oh, we love the train. Awesome. Oh, wow. Vibrates my chair.
And it is still a Kansas City Southern Rail.
Kansas City Southern Rail. So you are tied to Kansas, or is that coming from Missouri side?
Oh, it's coming from. It was from Kansas City.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Longbill, the large timber company that operated here, they were from that area too. So yes, we have some Kansas City, Missouri ties here.
Oh, that's good because
Great sound effects.
I know, great sound effect, and it feels good on my tush. I'm just gonna say that.
Okay.
Well, the depot in Leesville is a KCS depot, Kansas City Southern Depot.
So the one thing, you have a caboose here too.
Yes, we do. That was a caboose for Kansas City Southern that ran through this area. And the fire department here with the city kind of refurbished the inside. But technology replaced the caboose. But we have that here, and the kids love it.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. The website, do they go to the city website to learn more?
Yes, there's a link on cityofderitter.org, and then we have a Facebook page too. So look for Beauregard Museum on Facebook.
Okay, thank you.